Greetings, one and all. This is the BaanTu channel, and we are taking a spiritual look at some of the people, places, and events that are dominating our news feed and social media. And I thought I would take a look at Shane Warne, Zelensky, and the WooHoo-Ukraine Sandwich. I'm calling it the Wuhan Ukraine Sandwich, and I'll get into that in a minute, but it is really trying to go a little bit deeper than what you might be getting and employing some of the techniques and tools of human design in BaanTu. So if you're not familiar with that, through the course of this, you might gain some kind of sense of what this is about. So I call it the sandwich, just getting into the Wuhan Ukraine sandwich, because we really are dealing with a situation of, going into 3 years now of two major news events, two major media campaigns, as I cannot help but think of them. It's very easy to get caught up in this and think, oh, it's all breaking news, it's all happening. There is something about, from a professional standpoint, when I look at both the coronavirus, when it started in January 2020 and now going into January 2022, when the war rumblings really started with Russia, Ukraine, that these are not necessarily breaking news events, but carefully choreographed events that have extensive media campaigns. And it's important to keep this in perspective here, that the huge drama that was coronavirus, and I'm not saying it was all false, I'm not saying there aren't elements of truth to it, but how it was presented, how it was delivered, the campaign behind it, which was, to me, again, just on a professional standpoint, so obvious to see. And I'll be touching on that as we go through some of these telltale signs that you can see that this didn't just organically happen. It was way too organized with the messaging and the memes and the mantras and the slogans to have just organically all of a sudden popped up. But it's important, as we are dealing with these two news events that have really marked the 2020s, that this is all about a currency reset and a movement to a digital currency or a digital dollar. And again, I don't want to get into all the reasons for that now, but please bear that in mind as you absorb the news flow. And so, we have this sandwich here with, our hard news story at the bottom here, coronavirus. And then the last two, again, going on 3 years of emotions and fear and panic and upheaval, and the edges of our lives completely blurred. I mean, with working at home, just, one element of it, kids studying at home. What is work? What is home life? What is private? What is public? Completely blurred, topped by another, crusty crust of news story, firmly packaged and nicely put before us. And we are left to deal with a lot of confusion. And again, it's important to remember that, you are dealing with a change in our financial world and money as we know it. And if we just take a look at the price of gold, and this is yesterday's chart, March 8th, it was, it's above this $2,000 an ounce level. And if you look at this, I've got a long-term chart here from 2001, you can really see the authorities have kept it below this key 2000 level that is seen as a psychological benchmark, and that the authorities did a really great job in keeping it subdued. I mean, if you look back until 20 years ago, it was not even $300 an ounce, and it's just gone up here tremendously. And this is in the aftermath of the mortgage meltdown and the credit crisis, subprime mess that spread the world over. And it didn't get to that point, and it has certainly breached that level. And gold is the first metal, it's the first money, it is hugely significant here. And so, it's broken that barrier. And the authorities have either lost control, or they are trying to make a point with having inflation go higher now to get into a new currency that is digitized and that they can control. And there are reasons they have to. I mean, there are, we're the Western world, is in a point where it almost has to. But I don't want to get too bogged down into the financial reasons for that. I really want to focus on, this sandwich that we're living in here. And as you go through watching the news, and as they're trying to move us into a new currency and a new way of life, that you keep these, what appears to be on the surface, these major breaking news stories, that they are carefully crafted, stage managed events. And all the world's a stage, William Shakespeare. And I thought this meme really summed it up here, that no sooner does the curtain come down on COVID than it's pray for Ukraine this week. And this really just kind of made me laugh here, and I think really sums it up. And just as you have in any play or any theatrical event, the cast of characters shift, the furniture changes, the scene changes, the lighting shifts. The people change, the characters change. And so Fauci, who, every day was giving COVID updates out of the White House and on the news and on newspaper articles and magazine covers, he's missing. And again, the meme really captures this. I think he was on one podcast in the last week in America. So really missing from action, as again, these new players have come forward. And we'll get into the memes and the photos that have just gone viral, but this one of the rifle girl, I'm just going to call her the rifle girl in Ukraine. If you look at her Instagram feed, and other YouTubers have certainly done this, I'm not going to repeat what they've done, but they've certainly gone through thoroughly their Instagram of her posing for months on end now with rifles and guns in between, beach shots and model poses, the former Miss Ukraine. So again, nothing is by accident here. This isn't just some random woman holding a gun. It is definitely, it's stage managed, stage crafted here. With Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, now the new poster boy of a new crisis. And Pedro Gonzalez, I have no idea who he is. I saw this on one of the social media sites here. And I don't know who he is, and I don't really care. He's got supposedly 76,000 followers, or my eyes, it's hard to see here, but he's got 70,000 followers or so here. And he said it before, and I'll say it again, Zelensky is the Fauci of world leaders. And Zelensky's the Fauci of the new crisis. He's the new poster boy. And again, he did not come out of nowhere. This isn't just some organic politician, lifelong leader, quietly squirreling away in the background, which we'll get to. But, again, he's been carefully stage managed, and he's a professional actor. The public relations world technique number one, it takes weeks, months, and many millions to prepare a media campaign. And I do reckon that Zelensky didn't just step into this role by accident, but it has definitely been weeks, months, if not years of prepping him for maybe not such a role as this, but something similar to that. And my other favorite technique here is number two, use a celebrity as a spokesperson for a product, service, cause, or breaking news story. And we certainly saw that with COVID in the early days when Tom Hanks was the celebrity. He was the poster boy of the COVID crisis. And you couldn't, certainly in America, turn the TV on or the video, and have him doing videos on COVID, and he and his wife, and they were in Australia, so on and so forth. And Zelensky, now we have it a whole new extreme. He's the man of steel. With God bless Ukraine, God bless Volodymyr Zelensky, he stands willing to bleed with his people, and that what makes him a Caesar. Putin thinks himself a czar, a Caesar, a Superman. The real Superman is clear. It is Volodymyr Zelensky. So I'm not taking a look at Putin here in this. I'll get to him in I hope another show, but this is just to see how Putin's been around for ages. So he has been, in the public sphere for a long time. I'm really taking a look at, again, the sandwich times that we're living in. The Wuhan, Ukraine sandwich, and these two media events that have really come out of, that are definitely have classic telltale signs of being a media campaign that, it's millions to prepare these memes, to prepare people. I mean, media training, and to get him to give speeches and interviews and speak into a camera. He's already had that actor training, but it's taken years to do this. And again, we'll get into this. Now, thrown in the middle of all of this, and I have to say, I was looking at LinkedIn a lot as the Russia invasion happened, and I'm going to say invasion in quotes, because it's been called many things, and there was a lot of confusion even by Joe Biden on what to call it. But I was on LinkedIn a lot, and it was very interesting to see how crafted the media campaign was for the corporate world. And again, we'll take a look at that. Now, in the middle of this, Shane Warne dies, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. It's the cricket legend. He's the Michael Jordan of cricket. I don't watch cricket. When I lived in London, I heard about Shane Warne. And I knew he was a big deal. And in the middle of all this, as I'm on LinkedIn looking at the Ukraine memes on Zelensky, pops up from the Prime Minister of Australia announcing his death. And the one comment after the other that came up on his sudden death. In the midst of all this, again, as the theater, the scenes change, the COVID story comes crashing down with COVID restrictions lifted in LA and New York City, and Albert Bourla, who's the chairman and CEO of Pfizer, ready to come out with his book Moonshot, which I've not read yet, and dying to read what he has to say, or his ghostwriters. But he writes, during the pandemic, we knew that every day without a vaccine, lives were lost and people continued to suffer from COVID-19. All of us at Pfizer were motivated above all else by the potential to save lives. Well, it's very interesting that, again, this did not come out of the blue. I think we can all obviously see you don't write a book, in a week. That the book took, again, I'm going to say years in the making. This is not something that just happens. And to get it to the publisher and edited, it would have had to have been pretty much wrapped up by the last half of 2021. So again, it's a media campaign of touting its success at a time when behind this, and again, restrictions going, and the perception is now being created that COVID is over, everything is okay, and yet we have people dying of very young ages, and we don't know why, and shocking deaths. And again, I was looking at LinkedIn, and Shane Warne's death was not the only shocking death at that time, and I'll get to it in this video. In the midst of all this, there were other people, some not famous at all, who died suddenly. And if you read the comments, there was absolutely nothing to suggest that this person was sick or had any health issues. Now, they are saying in Shane Warne's case it was natural causes. We'll get into all of that later. But again, be aware now, the COVID sandwich, that they are definitely want to create the perception this is all over. This was a success. If you look at the book Moonshot, the story by Bourla is a story of the challenges we faced, the lessons we learned, the core values that allowed us to accomplish what no one thought possible. My hope is that it might inspire and inform your own moonshot, whatever that may be. Whatever that may be, who knows, I really don't really have to read the book to know where he's going here with this. But the perception here is that it's all over. We're now going to tell the story in the sense that it will inspire you and inform you of your own moonshot. So again, creating more images, new words, new lingo, new language to suggest that this is all over. Meanwhile, people are dropping dead. And natural causes or not, it is very alarming when somebody robust, healthy, dies unexpectedly at the age of 52. So Warne died of a suspected heart attack at the age of 52 on a holiday in Thailand. He had experienced chest pains before his death. He was down there with some friends. He has a history of asthma and had seen a doctor about his heart. The three friends had been staying with Warne at a villa when he died of a suspected heart attack. If you look at the data coming out of the US, certainly that the adverse reactions to the vaccine are happening in males, and particularly males between 14 and 17 with myocarditis. But men are definitely being affected by the heart and pericarditis and so forth and so on. So in the midst of Russia-Ukraine, we are seeing these unexpected deaths, but there is not a mention of even COVID in here. There's not even a mention, did he have COVID? If you looked in the last 2 years, anyone who did die, it was, well, did they even have COVID? So there's a total absence of the mention of COVID. You would never know we were in a pandemic still and wearing face masks, because we're drawing really a lid on it now with restrictions lifted in LA and New York City, which had the harshest mandates of all. And again, public relations campaigns, it takes weeks, months, and many millions to prepare a campaign, and that means also closing one down and starting a new one. And this is what I mean by weeks and months of starting a campaign. So there was a couple days on LinkedIn, I could not go on LinkedIn. I usually find LinkedIn really boring. It is, I'm a professional person. I've been in the media world for over 30 years, and I usually find LinkedIn very, very boring. It's a lot of corporate business types and, MBAs and just boring stuff. But since COVID, it's really taken on this new corporate progressive stance. They're taking issues on things. And in the run-up to COVID, you had the cancel culture and everything. So, corporations very concerned about their brand and wanting to preempt a social media backlash. But when I went on LinkedIn, and within a matter of minutes, one by one of my contacts had posted a similar photo with different verbiage. And I don't have all the verbiage here, and the font's way too small here for me to read it all. But here, this one. During his inaugural address in 2019, Zelensky told lawmakers, "I do not want my picture in your offices." Okay, and yet the pictures are everywhere on LinkedIn with different, some of it's very similar here. Yeah, it's the same blurb, different people posting things. Some of it is different though. These happen to be all the same, but I did see a different schmeal at the start of it. So none of this is by accident. Okay, and this person, all these people are sharing this. So this did not just come out of the ether. He has this Superman mask over the eyes, if you notice, and only his son has something over his eyes. So the wife and the daughter don't have any face paint on. For some reason, it's the dad and the son, okay? Sort of implying it's just a fun day in the garden, face painting, hanging out. And I can tell you this was carefully coordinated, planned out to be used in a public format, okay? Whether this campaign particularly or not, I don't know. But none of this is by accident. And the Superman meme is certainly going to come up time and time again when it comes up with Zelensky. So again, they're choreographing here, the Superman theme. Now, last night he gave the Churchill address. So again, it's applying, he's flying into the rescue of his people. But I thought this was so interesting because it was all corporate types reposting this. And without a lot of thought, without a lot of circumspection, without a lot of trying to figure out the details of exactly what's going on. And this was in the very early moments of that. These were some of the other pictures and blurbs that were going completely wild on LinkedIn. And again, we're talking LinkedIn, so it's a corporate milieu. It's all about brand recognition and so forth. And so these were the other memes. Another fatality reported 2 days ago. Ukraine combat medic Valentina Romashka, who was KIA, I don't know what that is, to preempt the normal comments from trolls. Yes, she is wearing makeup. I mean, Yeah, I don't know if that's really what we're trolling here, Alan Mulker, whoever you are exactly. But um, again, none of this is by accident. I saw the same photos, posted time and time again. This woman in the corner here, I could go on a 10-minute, down the link of who she is. She is in social media herself. So she's very close to all the action. It's the metaverse. We're looking at Zelensky, who's the poster boy, who ran and won as president in a party called Servant of the People after being an actor in a show Servant of the People. So this is predictive programming on steroids. This is so in your face that, you have to be really willfully ignorant not to see here that there is a certain priming of the pump, if you like. It is a campaign that has been in the workings for years. My question has always been with Zelensky, was it a chicken or an egg? Was he in the government service? Was he a spy? Was he in the government apparatus of Ukraine and then became an actor? Or was he an actor first and then got recruited for the cause? And, I've been kind of toying with that back and forth. And after looking at his human design chart in BaanTu and having a think of it, I'm convinced that he's more of a government agent. He's more of the government who was then slotted in to serve as an actor and prime the people for this similar situation. And why does that matter? I don't know exactly, but I do feel that, he did start out deeply ensconced in the government, political deep state world, if you want to call it. And, that happens. I had a friend in London who was also Ukrainian, funny enough, really coincidental. And she emigrated with her father and family to America. And this was during the Cold War. And she was recruited by the CIA. They found out, they obviously know who's coming from these former Iron Curtain countries. And she was recruited. And she told me the story. And they wanted her to be in the CIA, but a lot of the work in the CIA, unless you're in Langley being a techno geek and writing code and hacking or whatever they're doing with computers, there lots of stuff, they do have a lot of people in the field who look very normal, who are embedded and integrated into normal business, normal society. You would never ever in a million years, like the Americans, like that show on Fox, except it was reversed. But she was recruited, she told me, by the CIA, and they made her do this huge diagnostic test of what profession she'd be good at naturally. So that's part of the allure. There's a real blend of, truth and lies in this world. And so, they pick people who would be naturally good at, and she did the diagnostic test, and I said, well, what did you come out as being really good at? She said, well, the profession was air stewardess, that I would be the air stewardess. And I said, that is hilarious. I could see you being an air stewardess, but she is so smart and she's so, very a smart, well-spoken woman. I said, yeah, I could see you doing that. But she didn't. She got married instead and wanted children. It was a different life path. But my point is, that's what they do. They start recruiting people, at foreign policy schools or international schools, and they think, well, how do we slot you into the real world? And I believe, I don't know for a fact, how could anyone know for a fact to report it? But I believe it was something similar like this, that he was chosen and it was clearly seen he had some aptitude for acting. And you can see here in different roles, he's very, look at this. He looks very polished and sleek, and well-dressed with the wife. But, it's the rugged warrior and the heroism of being in the field. And it certainly plays on this earlier meme of, no, I don't want my picture in your offices. The president is not an icon, an idol, or a portrait, And yet that's exactly what they're doing. You know, it's a portrait and it is an icon, and it's these iconic images that they're definitely trying to implant into people's heads on a mass perception. And let's face it, you know, he's a lot friendlier on the eye. He's younger than Putin, you know, who looks like he's had like 10 rounds of plastic surgery, you know, and he's just not appealing to look at. And he's older and, you know, whatever. So, you know, he's starting as a younger man. I'm going to put the background here, just dipping into the spiritual world here. What we have going on right now is Neptune, the planet Neptune, in the sign Pisces. And so the fog of mass media, the deception, is at already all-time highs. You know, we haven't seen anything like this. And I'm quoting the Leo King here because I do want to give him credit for this. He's been banging on about it. But he said, you know, you haven't seen such a transit like this since the Civil War in America, which I know, again, from my own professional studies and research that I've done, was the propaganda was nuts between the North and the South. I mean, it was really crazy, and cameras were becoming a mass media tool, and photography was being employed on levels never before seen in newspapers and media. And so again, you know, grain of salt is really needed in this atmosphere to begin with. This is deeply deceptive, deeply foggy. And you can see here Pisces, you know, Neptune has been traversing Pisces for a while here. So again, getting back to the COVID sandwich, the Wuhan, Ukraine, you know, sandwich there, we are in the middle of Neptune, Pisces, goo and ooze, and where does the cheese start and where does the egg begin, and where's the avocado, and is it guacamole now, and what is going on? And CNN, again, to me, completely blurring the lines so many times on this story. You know, reporting on using CNN Prime in Prague as part of the story in a lot of times. They're not objectively reporting, they're part of the story. And I'll get into this in a little bit more detail here. But again, it's important to spiritually get into what is going on behind the scenes. And you're dealing with Neptune, you're dealing with Pisces, which is a very spiritual sign at the best of time. I find it very interesting as all this is erupted. Neptune is not just in Pisces, but if you look at the I Ching and the human design wheel here, it's in gate 36, the gate of crisis, the darkening of the light, the rule of cycles in which decline is a natural but not enduring stage. So it's not just in Pisces, it is in this crises moment. The darkening of the light. Decline is a natural but not enduring stage. And getting to my point about CNN, they were, you know, one of the early reports, CNN inside subway station, that's become a bomb shelter in Ukraine, and reporting on the refugee crisis. Well, you know, and there she is, Clarissa, and okay, that's one thing. She's got a lot of people behind her. But keep in mind, CNN, for the past 2 months, had been doing nothing but warning about an invasion from Russia. So it's really natural that people would have had a couple bags packed, would have been making arrangements to visit family in Poland, Hungary, in the neighboring countries around that western edge of Ukraine, to get the heck out. So, you know, they have a role in this. You know, how much were these fears warranted? You know, how much did the West lead Russia down the garden path? How much did they lead them down to get to this point? Could things have been averted? You know, and I realize some of this can be very triggering and maybe not what you want to hear if you've been, you know, protesting for Ukraine and raising money for Ukraine. But there's no balance being had at CNN, which incidentally, the main broadcasters too have pulled out of Russia. So they're not even in Russia right now because they're worried about disinformation laws. Well, if you're not causing any disinformation, you have no reason to be scared of those laws. Getting back to our friend LinkedIn here, we had many brands coming out. The front page of The Economist here, making its start. From the start, Vladimir Putin has made it clear that this is a war of escalation. He threatens to be more destructive, even if that means resorting to a nuclear weapon. Now, he's not said that. He's actually come out with deterrence, but it's been so twisted and mangled that trying to get any clarity on this gets very difficult, because the lies just sort of pile on top of each other. I had a laugh here with IBM, and again, this is all from LinkedIn, jumping on here saying IBM stands with Ukraine. Read the statement from the CEO. Well, I read some of it, and it's just sort of verbal diarrhea. I really couldn't get through it all. And I'd be kind of careful if I were IBM. They have a really shady history of siding with some really Nazis, and World War II, ran the machines for the Nazis and calculated how many people were going in and out of concentration camps. So if I were them, I'd be a little bit careful here about this. We don't know all the players in Ukraine. And I would recommend seeing Oliver Stone's Ukraine on Fire to get a sense of the neo-Nazi background and the nationalist parties there that are not all sunshine and light. So when you stand with Ukraine, who are you standing with exactly, IBM? And this is what I mean. It's this campaign that is made to put slogans and make it go viral, create the perception that this is absolutely the right thing to do, even, without any due diligence on the reader's part. Let's look at the chart of Zelensky. So our poster boy. And again, look how official he looks here. Look at this role he's absorbing here with the gold drapery. He really looks, if you didn't know he was an actor, you would really think he was this young, dynamic president. And, he'd spent a lifetime doing this. And again, I believe he has. I believe the acting was a front to these deeper intelligence ties, and that is my opinion here. I could be completely wrong, but I do believe that. I believe he was always into intelligence and government, and then got recruited to be the actor and prime the public, and prime them in not exactly the most enlightened way or a high standard way, but in a real degraded Western way. And again, getting into human design here just for a minute, we are at the end of the cross of planning. Standards are definitely going down. Every day, standards are falling. I'd say every 5 minutes, literary and aesthetic standards are falling. And here we have Zelensky playing the piano with his penis, and I'm not going to show the video. I'm not going to show the pictures. He has his pants draped around his ankles. But this is the kind of stuff he starred in. So it's acting, but it's very lowbrow. It's something a 12-year-old boy might find absolutely hysterical, these evening talk shows. And again, Superman to the rescue. Here's this cartoon. So it's the many faces of Zelensky. And we have stilettos and fetish heels. And again, he was doing this as an actor. It was seen as a parody. But what's a parody? I don't even know. Is that the parody, or is this the parody? Again, this is not a history that you see in Ukraine or Russia of men wearing stilettos and fetish heels and looking like they're out of a, Girl Gone Wild Madonna video. She did the same thing a few years beforehand, which I thought was a really cool video. But when you see the future leader of a country, dressed in a little bolero jacket with his belly and chest hanging out and fetish heels, having gone from the voice of Paddington, there's something really jarring about this. And it's made to jar. That's the point. This is all by, again, keep in mind, this is a media campaign that has been years in the case of Zelensky. This is to get the voice, children used to the voice who are now becoming teenagers and adults, and throwing them off course here by then seeing him do this. And these are confusing mixed messages to see. From a human design standpoint, I thought it was very interesting. His profile is a 4-6, and I just want to focus on the 6 side of things because that's the highest on the epigram. That is the highest. That's on the body side. And people with the 4-6, they're very much into the material. It's more, wealth. Lots of wives, lots of this, and I'm not suggesting he's, has lots of wives or girlfriends or anything like that. But it's a materialistic approach to life. Whereas if you have the 6-2, which I do, so the 6 is on the mind side. On my mind, I'm constantly looking for more. What's this? What's that? And there's a certain standard with that, with the 6. I mean, it's at the top. It's not even part of it technically. It's it's removed from the. It's a little bit more removed, and it's removed because it's looking for a higher standard. It's hard to have high standards if you're in the midst of it all. But, if you're slightly outside of it, you go, this is a high standard. And I'm like that on the mental side. I really am. I like things at a high level. I like to read. I like, I'm very picky who I read, for instance. I'm very picky what movies I watch. I'm very picky what I take in. It has to be of a certain standard. And the 6, there's a certain element on that side too. It's got to look a certain way. You got to have it. You've got to, and we'll explore this later too. If you see the photos they're in, they're all perfect photos. These 4-6 people, they're, if you look at their Instagram pages, even just normal people, it's like every photo on Instagram is like, it looks like they're on a Tahiti resort, Their homes look like they're out of, Architectural Digest. Even if they don't have a lot of money, they create this kind of zone in their life where it's just picture perfect tableau because they have this high standard on the material level. And if it's not necessarily a high standard, they will then overcompensate with wanting more. So I think that was really interesting to see this 4-6 level, combined with this natural tendency to be, obviously his acting abilities, and that's how he was recruited to get into the populace and be groomed to take this leadership role. If we look at his son, on the mind side, which is predominant, it's in gate 28, the gate of the game player, the preponderance of the great, the transitoriness of power and influence. Blaze of glory. So he's, a line 6 there. No, it's on the body side. If I said the mind side, I meant body side. This is on the body side. So this is where you get this profile. This is the mind side. This is the body side, or the design side if you're in human design. But I'm using BaanTu terms here. So this is mental, body. And so he's got his son in this gate 28, line 6. So regeneration and renewal, no matter what the price. The deep intuitive drive to win, no matter what the cost. So he will do what it takes. If he needs to do this to get to be prime minister, to get to be president, rather, he needs to do this to climb up the ranks of intelligentsia, he'll do that. I mean, there is this, he'll do what it takes. The detriment, self-destruction, the deep intuitive fear of defeat, and a potentially profound hopelessness in times of struggle. So, he's able to give his Churchill speech, which he gave last night. And I have to confess, I didn't listen to it, and I didn't even read the whole thing. But it's a very derivative speech. Again, we're at the end of cross of planning. You are seeing standards falling everywhere from everybody across the board, whether you like them, don't like them, they're your party or not. You're just not getting true statesmen, a statesman the way we did years ago. However, he's able to deliver the lines, and there's an element of sincerity when he gives it. He does not want to lose now. I mean, he's had to be the voice of Paddington. He's had to dress in stilettos and grab a guy's rear end and do his squats and dress in his garb. I mean, there is an element here that, he is putting himself out there, which gives it some authenticity. Again, to be a successful person at these high levels of government or deep state, it's a blending of truth and lies constantly. In the middle of all this, I thought this was such a great question on LinkedIn, and I don't know who Sahel Khan is. Here's the question. Where is NATO? Where is the United Nations? Where is the European Union? Where is America? And that is the question here also to keep in mind as we're dealing with the Wuhan Ukraine sandwich. If it were that bad, how come we are not seeing a reaction from the Western powers to this? To me, there's not a good answer why. Some people might out there, you might have some answer that you think, to me, I've explored it all. I don't see it. Okay. And so again, just getting back to Zelensky, trying to establish who he is, again, with that 6 on the body side, there is a real tableau sense with these people. There's the scene, there's the bright lights. And again, I thought this was so interesting. Again, this picture comes up a lot when he won Dancing with the Stars in Ukraine. He's got this blindfold over his eyes. I've never seen that with any dancing contestant. I've seen them do a lot of stuff. I thought that was very interesting and maybe slightly metaphorical. We saw with the Superman mask over him and, coming out of the COVID era with masks over the face. Believe you me, these people who are developing media campaigns know exactly how to arrange things, know symbols, know how to affect people subconsciously. So while you might think it's a real farce, I might be really pulling, really going too far with this. I don't think so. I don't think I'm going far enough. These people think of everything. Nothing is left by design at all. Nothing's left by design. So we've got our Paddington Bear. We've got our son holding up now, legs spread open wide, the dad and the boy with the mask. The mom and the daughter very kind of stayed almost by comparison. It's a very interesting kind of split. And again, somebody thought of this. There was something here affecting our subconscious somehow. I don't know how. If we look at his chart here, if we just look at without any transits or anything like that, I thought this was very interesting. And again, this to me signals that this guy was the chicken, it was the egg before the chicken, that he started out in government and then got pigeonholed to be the actor, because this is a very strong chart. He's a manifester like Putin. So if we just look at it from a human design standpoint, he's a manifester, which is, these people are, they can inform, they can move, they're a bit of a lone wolf. There's a lot of power interaction in how they can move in life. It does not mean they don't meet resistance. They're not, and I can see it with the manifestors in my life. They tend to operate quite solo, and there's a power in it. They can get away with it to a certain degree where, most of us can't do that. He has the gate of the fighter here. So I really think this is such an interesting line. I mean, even his design has this certain tableau to it and a certain symmetry. So it starts from the root, this line, this channel of the fighter. Okay, so there is something to him. He's not just a puffball. He's not just, dancing with the stars, little toy. He's not just a puppet. That's, I guess, what I want to stress too. He's not just the puppet. It's very easy to think that. There's this channel here, fighter, going up to the spleen. And then he's got this channel, the salesman channel, to the will. And then from the will to the throat. And this channel here encompasses these two gates, the gates of the prime minister and the queen. Okay, so, and it's from the throat, it's the have or I have not. And it's the channel of the materialist. So I think there's quite something. This movement here to the throat. And so it's almost perfect. He's a fighter selling the fight, isn't he? He's selling the fight. He's selling the fight. But he has this leadership quality too that is not totally inauthentic. And he does have a leadership channel here from the throat down to the G center, And he looks the same. I mean, it is that, these G's who are, these defined G's who do happen to be actors, they do look the same, like Madonna has a defined G. She can dress up as this, that, a cowgirl, a this. She's still Madonna. You still see that. It still comes through. You still see it with Zelensky, no matter what role he's in. His essence comes through. Okay. So, I found that really, really interesting. Undefined head and ajna. So, taking things in, very sponge-like and able to absorb a lot. Where somebody's more fixed in their head, it's really hard to kind of switch gears in some ways. Now I'm going to switch here to Shane Warne. So again, we're in the Ukraine COVID sandwich. And what does Shane Warne have to do with COVID? Well, again, we are hearing a lot of deaths suddenly. If you, at the start of the whole pandemic, I was collecting obituaries on people dying of COVID. And I wish I kept them all or logged them properly. But I did keep physical copies of the Chicago Tribune and the New York Times. There's somebody doing the opposite here. His name is Mark Crispin Miller, and he's out at New York University. And he's collecting obituaries of people post-COVID who are dying suddenly, and he reckons it's from the vaccine. And I'm not saying Shane Warne died from the vaccine. How would I know that? The official autopsy has said natural causes. However, I'm quite suspicious, or I wouldn't be talking about it. So again, to me, it's linked. In the middle of let's make COVID go away, you have people dying, and wouldn't you know it? As the lords and the gods love to have little jokes, it's not just, unknowns dying, but it's, Shane Warne. At the same time, I saw Shane Warne pop through on LinkedIn. I saw Simon Greenberg. I had no idea who Simon Greenberg was. But he is, again, I thought very interesting, the same age as Shane, 52. He was a sports journalist, and he was linked with, one of the big soccer clubs in London. I can't remember. I am not I'm not a sports person. So, but again, this popped up in my feed at the same time. And it was, this is not coincidental. Nothing's coincidental. A day before that, this guy popped up, New York University's head of finance. He dies suddenly. And how do I know he died suddenly? Well, if I went through the copious comments, you would hear one, saying, "I'm shocked. I can't believe it. This is unbelievable. I'm shocked. Shock doesn't cut it. I don't know what to say." So, OMGs, exclamation marks. It is with indescribable sadness that we share the passing of Peter Carr, the beloved chair of Tandon's Department of Finance and Risk Engineering. It would be impossible to overstate the esteem in which Peter was held. Okay, he was a former Morgan Stanley managing director and head of market modeling. He arrived at Tandon in 2016. He was hardly regarded as a researcher. He will be sorely missed by anyone lucky enough to have counted him as a colleague, teacher, mentor, or friend. This is the last photo that they chose to put. So, again, a youngish man in the prime of his life at New York University with, presumably lots of money. He was at Morgan Stanley, so could afford great health care. Great teeth, good face, clear eyes. This is, a healthy man from this photo. And there's, again, no inclination. And usually they would put something in a little obit like this, that, it was dying of cancer, long-suffering illness. Please make a donation to this. And again, I'm mentioning this because this all came similar with the Shane Warne news. And then I saw this, an Austrian presenter collapses on air. Again, all at the same time frame. There's a video. I'm not going to put the video up. I got a still frame of the point where she is leaning back and then boop, tips right over. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know. And if you go on Twitter, you're gonna see this. You will see this. Okay. So again, we have 6 on the body side. Now I'm kind of linking Zelensky and Shane Warne because coincidentally, and I had not looked at their charts before I did this slide and before I did this presentation, but they both have the 6 on the body. So they both are these materialists on the body side. And when I say materialists, I'm not saying that on a negative way. It is again, 6 is the highest you go on the I Ching. And that's looking for standards. It's looking for the most, the best, the greatest on the physical side. Again, if you have this on the mental side, you're looking for it on the mental side. You're looking for great writing, great art, great technique, great this, great that. There's a real sense of perfectionism in standards that you have. And for both of them, again, it was so coincidental to see they were both 4/6 profiles. And again, you see this kind of tableau that comes up consistently for them, where they just have these picture perfect, wives and settings and framing. I mean, it's just nothing is amiss, and so he's very body dominated in a different way than Zelensky. And this shocked me that Shane Warne is a reflector. There's nothing here defined. There's no consistent energy center for him. And, there's so many myths in human design. These people are non-energy beings. And I really reject that. If you're a physical being, you have energy. If you're a live creature, you have energy. So to sit there and go, he's a non-energy being. I mean, this would make no sense to have a professional athlete, Michael Jordan of the cricket world, have a non-energy. That just makes zero sense. Now, it wasn't smooth sailing for him, and he wasn't Mr. Perfect, but you could see he didn't have the capacity to be that way. And he had a real wackadoo little side to him. I mean, if you know the reflectors, I mean, I know a few. They are, total, they have a real wacky strain to them. And, Shane, couldn't keep that in. And he looks like a little rock star in some of these, some photos. And a handsome guy. And again, with nothing defined here, and this non-sacral being, if I'm speaking in human design terms, you can see the excesses that come with having these open energy centers where enough just isn't enough. And this headline kind of said that. Shane Warne died shortly after ordering 2 Thai masseuses and a tailored suit to his luxury can't pronounce it, villa, as more details of the cheeky larrikin's last hours are revealed. And again, I mean, I really laugh here. Talk about the 6 on the body side. She ordered a suit, and, a tailored suit and 2 Thai masseuses to his luxury. I mean, look at this, where he died even the tableau of his death. I mean, to the end, it's really picture perfect, The 52-year-old had completed a 14-day liquid diet days before his tragic death. Okay, well, that's interesting, and I'm just seeing that now as I'm reading this. He'd completed ridiculous diets on several occasions. Maybe that had some effect. Maybe with the vaccine. I don't even know if he was vaccinated. You don't know. My point is, we really don't know what happened. He had a heart attack. What precipitated this is anyone's guess. But again, I find this very curious with a lot of other mystery deaths that up pops Shane. And again, you can see this, people think, I guess, I just want to get here to the spiritual note here. We are really sold this bill of goods thinking we can decide how we live our lives and that we have a lot of decision-making capacity. And, you might go on Instagram or social media and go, that person always looks, they're in a beautiful place, they're wearing the most perfect clothes, maybe they have the 6 on the body side. And it comes easier to them to have that than to others, and we all want to try to be alike like that. We all think that's so easy to do, and we get maybe bitter or resentful, or why don't I have that, or why can't I do that, or why can't I be that way? And, you're not. The whole thrust of human design, the whole thrust of Christianity even, is the value of every human life. Every life is unique. Everybody has a different geometry. And to get bitter or resentful that, where's your Thai resort and where's this? And, you don't have a choice with this. There's an element of you get what you get. But it's so interesting to notice this and to be aware of this in others, that this is the trajectory he was on. This is his profile. That really comes out to a T. And again, this non-sacral being, his turbulent love life. Failed engagement to Elizabeth Hurley. I had no idea he was engaged to Elizabeth Hurley. I mean, I really didn't know. And that consumed me one night reading about those two. It's like, oh Lord, how much can I sit there and worry about Elizabeth Hurley? But again, you can't help it. It's this glamorous setting. She was a beautiful woman, and then you notice, God, she's gained weight the last 2 months. Okay, just stop going down this ridiculous rabbit hole here. But again, this non-sacral, nothing is enough. 10-year marriage, kinky sex romps, cheating scandals, plenty of social media, flirting with celebs, not knowing when enough is enough. This open G, this not a lot of direction. I mean, I think you could say with him. He had an amazing career, and there was a quote he gave to that, he was good at something, and that's what he was good at, that spinning maneuver he did. And again, I don't know much about cricket. I don't want to start talking too much about it because I will give myself away. I'm a complete ignoramus with sports. But, he was good. He was very, very accomplished with one thing. He was very good with that, But then when it ends, as it always does, there's a bit of a lack of direction with this. And again, to give this tableau and this high glamour in the settings he in. I mean, he had his own statue presented to him, walking out with the trophy, here with Tiger Woods. I mean, he's in this physical world that is at a very material level. And again, I don't say that in a negative way. And some people have this in life, and again, if you don't have that, suck it up, buttercup. You're not meant to have it. And there's reasons why some people have this kind of trajectory where they're in these high milieus and these glamour milieus. It doesn't mean you have a happier life. It doesn't mean you have a direction. And this is where I just want to point out too here, where I like BaanTu a little bit more than Human Design, is because, again, the chart of his, if you just look at Reflector, it would kind of mystify you, especially being told it's a non-energy being. Like, where's the competitiveness coming from? And surely that was consistent. Well, BaanTu really breaks down color and tone. And when you break it down, you can see very clearly, again, on the body side, this guy was very competitive. And this triangle here is all about the motivation. What gets somebody out of bed each morning? The motivation, how that sets your mood. And for him to be in a good mood, for him to be motivated, he needs to get up and compete, and to be around people who are competitors and want to succeed. I mean, Elizabeth Hurley, God love her, she wants to succeed. She's out there with bikini lines and bathing suit lines, and so I mean, he has a relationship with her. He's with Tiger Woods. He's with other athletes. This guy wants to succeed. It's a deep motivation on the body side, and you can see it here, the triangle here. It's deeply motivated. On the mind side, it's about recognition, and I don't want to get bogged down into that. I'll be here all day talking. I'm getting tired as it is. And then you can see his line. For BaanTu, instead of the 6, it's at the 3. We only go up to 3. And again, it's initiator. It's very active. I mean, this is a restless soul. He is restless. He's looking for action. And these guys are the type to get it. These guys and gals. An initiator. You are physically very active and like to be in control of your life. You hate to be told what you can and can't do. Okay. So, you can see that. You can see this physical restlessness. You can see the action. I mean, he's the highest there. If you were a 1, it would be, low restlessness or confidence. I think that's another good word for this. It's a confidence level. He's at the top of confidence for his body and physicality. And again, all of this, as we get into big picture now, just zooming out, big picture, it's the end of the cross of planning we are in. It's been 400 plus years now of logistics, organization, nation states coming to an end. And again, we're going to be looking on this channel as we go through these times now. We've looked at that, how this is unfolding. And again, my contention is, we are going to have the powers that be, the controllers, try and really, 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 really hard to come up here with more sandwiches for us, more media campaigns, more breaking news stories to try to reset us into a new world order, to a new currency, reset into a digital dollar. And they are going to try. I mean, there's going to be lots more media campaigns. There's going to be a lot more sandwiches. But I contend that it is all coming to an end. They're not going to win. Whatever they're planning, it's just not going to win. The new world order is going to be you. You're the new world order. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way or egotistical way, and far from it. That it is you are the new world order, that we are going to be forced to go more and more within and to listen to ourselves, to listen to our soul, and to, realize, once we get that awareness that divinity lives within us, not that we are divine, we are not gods, but that divinity lives within us, that divinity lives within our heart, which is what Christ was trying to say. We're going to be more aware of that, and that is going to be the new world order for us, As things start to fade, as the cross of planning starts to come down, winding down, we are going to definitely have an adjustment, but we are going to understand, we're going to know that the divine lives with us, and as long as we have that connection, we will be okay. It might not be how we think life's going to go, but we will be okay. So thank you so much for joining me on this, and I hope to be back with more BaanTu reports and a spiritual look at the people, places, and events that are marking our times as we wind up and wrap up this cross of planning. God bless. Be well. Bye-bye.